Hey, I'm Alex.
And I'm Brandon.
And welcome to Living Electric.
We're both content creators and electric vehicle enthusiasts.
And through this podcast, we hope to share our experience with owning electric vehicles and help you join the electric life. All right, we are back with part 2 of our villain origin story series. Part 2 of 2. So we're switching over to Brandon now. He's going to give us the full story from... I don't know when. I haven't heard the story, so...
Well, I was born in 92, and no, I'm just kidding. We're not going to go that far back. But we are going to go
toy
back.
cars as a child, and that's
Yes.
mine.
Exactly. I remember when I was 4 years old. So it actually, my story really starts back in 2004. Obviously, I'm not going to go from 2004 to 2022 because there's a big gap where pretty much anything car-related just didn't happen. But I always grew up around cars. You know, I think I've mentioned in previous episodes that I grew up around mainly sports cars. My dad always had either like old Porsches, BMWs. I remember he had a really cool Honda S2000 that he would take me to soccer practice in. And I've always been exposed to vehicles in that manner, mainly two-door coupes, convertibles, and so forth. So the interest in cars was mainly from an attention standpoint at the beginning of it. Like, I always loved pulling up to like either like parent-teacher conference, blasting like Linkin Park, or like soccer practice, you know, blasting Evanescence and, you know, so forth. So
What year was this
kind of
again?
what was it?
What year was this again?
This was 2000 to 2004. So back in those bands' prime moment.
The hits.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll actually never forget pulling up to a parent-teacher conference in my dad's S2000, and it was like a full moon, and we were blasting 3 Days Grace, like, I Hate Everything About You, and like...
That's awesome.
And I was not a troubled student, I just want to reiterate that. I expressed myself. So basically... From 2004, pretty much until like 2010, I just had no interest in cars. My main interest actually switched to music, to pop culture, to fashion, to social issues, and just really kind of focusing on that. And the whole car standpoint was just kind of put to the side. But the one thing I do want to focus on is the passion about like social issues and trying to do what's right for people as well as the planet, because that was kind of something I was really focused on. Specifically, gay rights, LGBTQI plus rights, and just really focusing on that community and how injustice really can impact the world. So that kind of focus on the alternative is what really drove me towards electric cars, believe it or not.
Okay.
I remember seeing the first Prius on the road and being like, oh, that's not the typical gas car. Like that's hybrid electric, it has gas and electric. So it's like the best of both worlds. That's how I viewed it at the time. And I always thought that was such a cool premise to be different, to kind of like go against the grain and really kind of support something that wasn't really popular at the time. So fast forward to like 2013, I was a fashion major at Kent State.
Really? I didn't know you started in that. Wow. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I went to Kent State as a fashion major. I actually wanted to be a music producer before then.
Okay.
So, I mean, not lying, like concerts, fashion, like I used to go to like fashion shows all the time. Like that was such a big part of my life.
That's cool.
And yeah.
You got any music floating around on the internet that we can find?
I do remember this was 2000, I think it was 2012. My high school put on like a charity for like raising money for, I think it was for water, God, I'm drawing a blank right now. It was for what is it like in like wells, like water wells, building wells in like Africa and like helping like villages like find
water
get water and stuff like that. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep. So they, I think it was called like Wellsprings. I think that's what the charity event was called. And I'll never forget. I was like, oh, I'm going to take my moment. I'm going to present this song to everybody. And there was no drop. It was just literally just like weird techno sound.
That's awesome.
Everybody on the dance floor is like, let's go. And it just like cut out. And I that creative side always was there, which kind of ties into the YouTube stuff. So, fast forward to 2013, 2014, I was working as a product specialist with Hugo Boss in Beechwood, Ohio. So I was working at Saks Fifth Avenue. I was one of the representatives for the team. I was selling suits, leather goods, pretty much like in the world of fashion. And that was always something that like I aspired for. But I always kept that interest in the alternative, especially when it came to transportation. And I remember standing there at our register because there was like kind of like a back access to like Google Chrome on our touchscreen registers. And I remember, this is so bad if anybody from my previous job is listening. I used to stand there and literally build Model S's all day. I would go to Tesla's website, go to the configurator, and just really build it, because that was always the interest for me, was the alternative. It never really revolved around automotive. It's actually kind of funny to say this. I was never really interested in cars as a kid, especially growing up with those cars. They just never really interest me like they do now. And my brother was always really interested in cars. And, my grandpa worked for Chrysler. So like we always got to go to like the unveiling events of like the Intrepid, and like, I'll never forget the Intrepid unveiling. It was way overhyped for what the car was. I mean, like velvet, like curtains and everything. It was ridiculous. But, like I was exposed to that as a kid with my grandpa working for Chrysler and, building Jeep Wranglers and stuff like that. But I never liked it, because to me, it was something that everybody liked. And I didn't want to do what everybody liked. I wanted to do the alternative. And that's where Tesla really fascinated me, because it was going against the grain. It was something that was changing the aspect of transportation. More so than it just being an electric vehicle, it was just different. And I've always taken a lot of pride on being different from other people, and especially like as I get older, I realize how similar I am to people, which is not bad. Like, it's a good thing, but like I still have always looked at being different as a good thing. But anyway, so yeah, I would spend a lot of time on the register building Teslas. And I just really got a lot of interest in it. And I wasn't in school at the time. I actually had dropped out because I was really having a hard time figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. Which I actually envy you a lot, because hearing your story about how like you knew exactly which path you wanted to go, and like you really worked for that. I was really struggling. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say my path is definitely not normal, so don't like if you're out there like struggling to figure out what you want to do, like you are very much in the majority. Like there's many people out there still trying to figure out what they want to do. So
yes, I was definitely one of those people. I just had like zero idea what I wanted to do. I mean, you could tell from the beginning of the story, I wanted to be a music producer. I wanted to be a fashion designer. Then I wanted to do something with fashion. And then I had no idea. So I actually went into being an English major at Kent State. Fun fact, I've actually written over 700 poems. A lot of people don't know that about me.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I have like journals full of writing.
Wow. Is that something you still actively do, or is it something you used to do?
Yeah, I used to do it. I battle a lot with like anxiety and depression when I was a teenager, and it was kind of like my outlet.
That's awesome.
I feel like that saved my life in a lot of aspects. And once I got that out, it was time to move on.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I know that
so
about you.
that's actually something I haven't really told a lot of people as an adult. But yeah, I have like journals in our basement full of my old poetry. And
wow.
Yeah. So that was always something I thought I was going to be into, being an English major, I was going to be a writer or something like that. And then I realized that was not for me. So I dropped out. I really focused on work. I worked 3 jobs at the time. And it all revolved around pretty much like fashion and coffee and stuff like that. But at the same time, I always kept an eye on Tesla. You know, like I watched Who Killed the Electric Car. I always kept an eye on like what the oil industry was doing to the world, you know, like the damage it was causing to the environment. And just, it kind of relates back to what I mentioned earlier, being like really passionate about injustice and how I viewed so many wrongdoings in the world and like what I could personally do to better that. And at the time, I didn't really have an outlet, you know, like I was really still focused on social aspects of my life, not really focused on what I wanted to do until 2015. So sorry, I feel like I'm rambling here.
No, you're good. That's
So
exactly what I did in the last episode. So
no. See, you were way more structured than I am here. People are like, we're gonna go back to Alex's episode.
I think you're overselling me. I felt just as rambly. So
so you know, 2015 came. I left Hugo Boss and I ended up getting a job at Best Buy for a seasonal job because it was tech, and my new major was digital sciences. I knew, you know, IT was the future. I knew it was something that like would establish my career for pretty much the rest of my life. So I switched gears from English to that major, and I was really focused on technology, which, you know, Tesla is purely technology. And when I worked at Best Buy, you know, like it gave me a chance to learn more about the IT side of things, more about the technical aspects of what we use day to day. And I ended up going to Starbucks afterwards, after that. Man, I have had so many jobs. And
my life, that's the thing. My life always feels so boring because it's like I didn't have like all these like interesting jobs and like had all these life experiences. So this is really interesting.
It's funny you say that because like I just felt like my life was like chaotic for years. Like I felt like I just had like no direction. Like I would always like, Tesla was always like up there, and like EVs were always kind of like what I aspired for. And it was always something I like kept going towards, but like everything else in my life was like a bouncy ball just everywhere. And so I ended up going to work at Starbucks. I was there for 6 months. And that's when I found out that Tesla had opened up a showroom in Cleveland. And I actually didn't know that they had opened it in 2014. And I had just been there for months, and I hadn't been there. I had no clue. And until a friend who lives across the street from there was like, yeah, they opened a Tesla showroom. Did you not know that? And I was like, what? What do you mean they opened one?
No advertising. So
no advertisement. Yeah. So like at the time, like unless you
they
drove by, you would never know. Yeah, right. Right.
Just
pass out a pamphlet.
Building.
Like, yeah, right. Just this empty building. But so I ended up, you know, like I was so enthralled with Tesla and like what they were doing at the time. Like I was still literally sitting in, I just realized I skipped an entire part.
Oh, go back. I did the same thing.
Yes,
so
I'm going to go back. So, man, this is going to be all over the place. So back to 2014, you know, like I had this moment where one of my childhood dogs had passed away, and it was relatively sudden. And my dad was trying to figure out a way to like make the family like happy again the day after it happened, and we just randomly were like, let's just go to Columbus. Let's go to the Tesla showroom in Easton. And it had always been like a dream of mine to see the Model S in person, because like I've seen like the Roadster, you know, like I've seen, you know, those vehicles, like obviously the Prius, the Nissan Leaf had like been pretty popular in Cleveland at the time. And I remember we went to the showroom and I bought my first corp jacket, like the black jacket with like the red liner and like the embroidered Tesla on the back. And I just remembered going from so sad that my dog had passed away to being so happy that I was in this car that I had always dreamt about and had this jacket that I had always wanted. And to me, Tesla was like that instant emotional connection. And anytime like I'm having a bad day or something, I actually go back and look at those photos from that day because it was so meaningful. Wow. And I actually met one of my friends who worked at that showroom. His name's David. David Karanja. He's no longer with Tesla. I think he's with Netflix now, but he worked at Tesla as a product specialist. And little did I know, fast forward back to 2015, David's brother worked at the Cleveland showroom, Andy.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So the family connection there. But at the time, we didn't get a chance to drive the car. But like it motivated me so much to do something with Tesla to the point where I actually got a Tesla tattoo before I worked at Tesla. And that is actually what got me the job. I do want to say I believe my skill set helped me get the job, but I'm pretty sure the tattoo pushed it forward.
Was this the Tesla? Because you have two. You have the Tesla emblem and you have the Model 3 tattoo. So was this just the Tesla logo?
Yeah, it was the half sleeve Tesla logo.
Gotcha.
And at the time, it's funny, the artist actually did it incorrectly. So like,
oh no,
you know how like the top of the T, there's that like V.
Yeah.
He did it like almost like a parenthesis, like where it's just rounded. And I didn't notice until like I got home after going all the way to the showroom to be like, look at my tattoo. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's not right. It's not right.
Oh no.
Yeah. So, but anyway, my manager at the time, his name's Ryan Beck. I don't believe he's with Tesla anymore, but he had been with Tesla since like 2013. Like he had been there since the beginning of like, Model S. Yeah. And he moved all the way from Arizona to open the showroom in Cleveland. And at the time I had showed him my tattoo. And, it was like a nice conversation. He was all excited about it. And then about a week and a half later, he called me and told me to apply for the job as a product specialist. Nice. And I was like, okay, I was a barista, but I knew Tesla was like the job for me. Like that's where I knew I needed to be. And it was like the first time in my life where things really felt in control. Like that was like the first time where I'm like, finally, like the beacon is there. Like this is where I'm supposed to be. And, fast forward, I went through an interview with him, which was he's going to kill me if he hears this. Literally, it was an interview walking around the building as he was smoking, and we were talking about Tesla and like what I would do with the job. And that was pretty much my first interview. And then fast forward a week later, I was literally watching Who Killed the Electric Car probably for like the 5th time, and they called and offered me the job. Wow. And I just remember literally like crying because like it was a dream. Like it was literally everything that like I wanted, for years. And so to finally be doing that. And my job mainly started off with me standing by a car at Crocker Park in literally the dead of summer. So like 90 to 100 degree weather, just literally standing outside of a titanium Model S. Is
that like a public park in Cleveland?
So Crocker Park is like a shopping center in Cleveland.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
They have like a big like Dick's Sporting Goods. They have like Apple, and it's one of the more premier shopping centers on the west side of Cleveland.
Okay. Is it kind of similar to Easton, like similar kind of vibe to Easton? Okay.
It's like a minimized Easton.
Gotcha.
Like it's shrunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much my entire job was me standing by a car. Like that was the beginning of my career at Tesla. And I just remember standing there like having no idea what to do, like talk about the car. I only knew what I knew from the internet. Like at the time, like Tesla was like, let's just go, like no time for training, just go
cars.
And just go and do your thing. And I wasn't allowed to move the car at the time because I was so new. And I'll never forget that the first time I got to move the Model S, and it was the first time I drove one, was to the parking garage. And I remember opening the panoramic roof. I remember blasting like music, just feeling like such a badass. And that was just such a dream. So then once that pop-up shop closed, I went back to the showroom in Cleveland, and that's really where I built the relationships that I did with my coworkers. I got a chance to learn more about the business, how the product specialist works with educating about the vehicles, and then taking those qualified customers or people who we feel like might be like warm leads, and then pushing them over to the owner advisors to then reach out and then hopefully try to process an order through them.
Yeah.
So I just remembered, the first time I went on test drives, getting a chance to like experience like the excitement behind the products and like really seeing how people just like lit up. It was different. Like that was the thing that kept motivating me, is like, let's get these people to experience something different. Something different than what they're used to, as well as, the big middle finger to the oil industry. That was always what motivated me.
Yeah.
So, fast forward, like 2015 came, like I was still in school. I was working part-time at Tesla on the weekends while going to school. I got to bring the cars down to campus all the time. So like I always had like a P85D with me on campus, like, like all these crazy opportunities to do that. And it was always so cool to like talk to other college students about the cars, because like that corp jacket, I literally wore it, I think 365 days. Like it never left my body. And it finally eventually broke, where the zipper broke, and I had to like just, hang it up. I was like, this is a chapter in history I'm just going to put away. But what was so amazing is that like during that time, like I was really focusing on getting through school so I could work with Tesla like at their corporate level.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a position at Cardinal Health as an intern in 2016 for their summer internship program. And it was focused on business continuity. So like disaster recovery and like if there's like any cyber attacks, how we can get our business back up as quickly as possible.
Okay. On the IT side then? Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Which was the first taste of outside of Tesla for me.
Yeah.
And it was actually the first taste of living on my own too, because the entire time I was living at my parents' house, I was commuting to college and I never had a chance to really be on my own. So I took the opportunity. I was like, well, let's see what happens. Let's move to Columbus. And it ended up going back to the social aspects of my life being the best time of my life back then. Getting a chance to live in a hotel by myself, like having like all this free access to like anything, and like meeting all these other interns, and it definitely made me realize that like this isn't what I wanted to do. Like it was such a great opportunity professionally to network and meet with people, but like in the back of my head, like Tesla was always there. And it actually got to the point where my final presentation was about Teslas. And I'll never forget, I interviewed for a job with Cardinal, and they called me and they're like, yeah, they think you like Teslas too much. That's what the HR rep said to me. And I was like, oh man, this might be true. Yes. Yeah. So, like Tesla had always remained a part of my life that entire summer. Like the Model X had just really come out in Ohio. So like I would go to Easton all the time to drive the Model X, get a chance to drive the P100D, Model S. I proposed to Tyler during that summer with a Model X and a Model S.
That's right.
Yes. Yes. So that was the summer I did my big proposal.
Was that, were you working at Tesla throughout this whole time then? Like, were you splitting time, or you just had connections there and were able to get the cars?
Yeah. So it was mainly connections. I was no longer employed by Tesla during the summer.
Gotcha.
Which kind of sucked, because I was there 11 months, and at 12 months I would have had stock from Tesla.
Oh, dang.
And I left at 11 months, and then of course when I came back at the end of the summer, it was restarted. Like it reset. So like I never got Tesla stock like some of my coworkers did.
Dang.
So definitely missed out there, but
that burns. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it just hurts a little bit. I don't like to talk about that. No, it was mainly connections. Like I talked to the new manager at the Tesla showroom. Ryan had moved, I believe, back to Chicago. I can't remember at the time where he left. But I had a lot of connections in like Tesla owner groups in Cleveland. I got a chance to use one of their Model S's and then borrowed a Model X for the night. And then basically, like through the rest of 2016, 2016, sorry. I mainly spent my time traveling with Tesla. Like I got to go up to Michigan a lot. I got to spend weekends up there doing test drives with customers, because at the time they would have to come to Cleveland to look at cars and like get a chance to experience them. So I would spend a lot of time going up there. I was wrapping up college, so I was able to work full time at Tesla while I finished school part time. Still got to bring cars down to campus. I took an environmental class at the time. It was called Horror
nice.
Movies and the Environment.
Okay.
And it was all about like climate disaster, like horror movies. And
Oh, nice. Okay.
it was really interesting. So like we got to talk about like the environment and how it related back to those movies, and how like those movies impacted society, and like if they changed people's mindsets and stuff like that. So that was pretty interesting. And throughout this entire time, like I was doing things on the side, like I was presenting data to like Twinsburg City Council about charging stations. I was reaching out to the Kent State campus, like parking, like not parking committee, their parking group, about chargers, and like trying to get them educated and like getting things installed. And successfully, at the time, I was able to get 3 chargers installed at Kent State through my efforts. I talked to the president of the campus, and she was like, yeah, we'll get them installed. And so like that effort definitely paid off.
That's awesome.
Twinsburg took a bit, which we'll get to in a second, which, I mean, local cities, as everybody knows, tend to take a while. But basically, I was wrapping up my degree, and I was still really interested in helping the environment. But the thing is at the time at Tesla, I wasn't making enough money to really go towards my next goals, like buying a house, figuring out life with Tyler. And so I had to do what I had to do. And, the Gigafactory in Austin, or Nevada, was just really starting to come online. And there was like no positions out in California. There was just nothing for me. And I had to do, what I had to financially to continue bettering my life. And I left Tesla, and I got a IT data job with the Cleveland Clinic. And that was quite a wake-up world, like a wake-up moment, because I went into a brand new world where it was corporate, which I had no experience with. And then like a brand new team of people who have had like 10, 15 years of professional experience. And I was only 25, and I had worked in a showroom for, 2 years, and let alone all the retail, jobs I had before. And that was quite a wake-up moment. And it kind of went back to the point in my life where like I felt like things were very chaotic, and I just didn't know what to do. But I still kept that interest in, renewable energy, electric vehicles. Obviously kept a close tie with all my Tesla connections, and, still going to the showroom whenever I could. And I had a Chevy Volt at the time. So like I always, I plugged in, I still educated people about electric vehicles. And I actually thought at one point in 2017 to start a YouTube channel, and I called it Kilowatts of Fun. That was my original YouTube channel. And it was my license plate. It was my license plate and everything. And I had this horrible intro. It was not good. But I didn't commit to myself like you did your first year, and that kind of fell to the wayside. But this was like a new journey for me into IT. And this is kind of where like it finds myself back into like the professional aspects of things. I never once gave up hope that I would end up back in the electric vehicle industry. And I think this is one thing I want to reiterate for people who are interested in this industry. At the time, as you mentioned, there was not a lot of jobs, especially here in Ohio.
Especially in Ohio.
Yes. It was very, very far and few between. And I remember people asking me all the time, how did you get your job at Tesla? How did that work out for you? And at the time, it really just took passion. But like now it takes skills and passion. Like you have to have both of those. At the time, like I never gave up hope that I would end up back in that industry. But I was a professional IT recruiter. IT is what I went to school for. And it was something that I always thought that it would bring professional happiness. And truth be told, for me personally, it never did until I ended up back at, Chargeway. But that's fast forwarding, years. And, so like back in 2018, I was an IT recruiter. I was doing really well with the job. I was the top recruiter in the agency. I was
Nice.
placing about 95% of my candidates. Like it was great. and it was a startup too. So like it gave me the opportunity to really have an impact on a business, which was great. You know, like it was something I really wanted. And then February of 2019 came, and total blindside, they closed the doors. Basically said that the business was not sustainable and that they needed to let everybody go.
Wow.
And yeah, which came to a shock to me because I'm like, I'm literally saving your business with like what I'm doing.
Jeez.
And so that was a shock. And I feel like the moral of the story throughout this whole thing is that like most of my life, I always felt like things were very chaotic and things were like out of my control. And 2019 was like the pinnacle of that for me.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
like I lost my job. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to keep the house. You know, like Tyler was the only one bringing in income until I got like unemployment figured out.
Wow.
And it was bad. Like, I mean, like my mental health was just like at a low. Like I was eating to make myself feel happy. So like I gained like an immense amount of weight.
Oh, geez.
And but the thing is that like and I don't think I actually ever told you this, like at the time, like I knew that I had all this free time. So I went back to school. I was going back to school for cybersecurity. I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. There's money in this. It's always going to be stable. And I really focused on that. But the thing that was always at heart was like, I want to do a YouTube channel. Like I want to take the time to do something creative, you know, like something that would bring me joy. And the thing that I think people don't realize is that like you don't have to have like this incredibly expensive setup to produce videos.
Yeah. Exactly.
I literally started with a computer I bought with I financed because, you know, I was laid off, so like I had to pay for it somehow for school, a webcam, literally a webcam.
Wow.
Standing there and just rambling about Tesla. I taught myself basic video editing skills. You know, like I downloaded as best as I can on a Windows, you know, for free. And I just told myself, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to push through and I'm going to do this while I'm looking for a job. I think I applied for like 120 jobs. Like I have like a whole spreadsheet of jobs I applied to.
Holy cow.
And it took me 9 months to get a job.
That's wild.
9 months. Yeah.
Jeez.
Which was very discouraging at the time, but also like it also kind of lined up like I'm going to find the job that fits for me. So I'm like, I knew it's going to happen. But at the time, like, you know, like I was I don't want to say mastering because I really wasn't. I was practicing, you know, like content production, like doing like Apple Watch reviews, like thinking like, oh, I'm going to be a tech reviewer, like, you know, talk about that. But then it like dawned on me. I'm like, EVs are where I want to be. You know, like I've always had a passion for teaching people about electric vehicles. I had the professional experience with Tesla. I have the knowledge. I'm always invested in looking at new technology with electric cars. Why not?
Yeah.
And it actually wasn't until I found your channel in 2019 that really pushed me. And I'll never forget, I actually had a video planned out where I'm like, these are the 5 YouTubers that I want to collaborate with. And you were on there. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know if I ever told you that.
I don't know. Did you upload it? Is it on like...
No.
Okay.
No, I never did. I started recording it, but it was like kind of like awkward and like slightly creepy because I
could see that.
Yeah, especially like if you didn't know, like, you know, who I was.
Who's this random guy making a video about me on this channel?
Right.
He wants to collaborate.
Right. But I remember watching your iPace video and like, you know, watching your Kia, I think it was the Kia Niro EV
Niro
video back in 2019. And I was just like, you know, like he does such a good job. I'm like, this is like really inspiring to me. And I put that together. I'm like, you know, collaboration is always good. And I was like, I'm going to do this video. I end up recording. I'm like, I'm not going to post this. But then I got the job at you know, as a project analyst at a company called Quadex. And I was just like, I've spent all this time, you know, really struggling to find work. I'm diving into work. You know, like YouTube can go to the side. And it actually wasn't until we ended up working from home and, you know, like I was all anxious about the pandemic and like, you know, just like trying to figure out life and stuff like that, navigating that. And I was just like, I'm going to take this time to do YouTube. You know, I'm going to dive into this. I'm going to really focus on educating about electric vehicles, you know, start with our Chevy Bolt that we bought in 2019. and produce videos all around that. Do EV 101 videos, get people interested and excited about cars, specifically electric cars. And it's funny because starting off with electric vehicles, it kind of dove back into cars, like, and which kind of ties in this whole story. Like when I was younger, like I hated cars. Like to me, they were like pointless. Like they were just an aesthetic, something that was almost like you're showing off your money type of tool. And now cars are everything to me, which is kind of funny that everything ties back in there. But I always knew that like I wanted something to educate about the impacts of transportation on the environment. I wanted people to know what their choices are doing to the environment, but not to scare them. So I'm like, how do I get to that like careful zone of like, educate them enough, but also don't scare them off from, the electric cars or getting away from gas. And, I just, stumbled upon Be Energized. It actually started off as Energized One. And I told myself, I was like, you know what? It's not one person. Like I can't be the only one. This might sound lame because I'm not like, on a TED Talk or something. But like I kept telling myself, like, I can't be the one that's energized. Like we all have to be energized. And I'm like, well, Brandon, my nickname is B for a lot of people. So I'm like, okay, be energized. And then obviously, you and I became, closer friends, and like we talked about content production, and I realized that that was not the proper name for a YouTube channel. And, fast forward, we had talked with Matt Teskey of Chargeway, and Matt is actually the one that named my YouTube channel by accident. He mentioned the word everyday EV, and that's where it stuck.
Yeah.
So it changed it to that. But, like throughout that entire time when I was working at Quadix, like I was really focused on bettering myself professionally, getting myself in a better mental area, like, focusing on my mental health as well as my physical health. Lost, I think, about 40 pounds back in 2020. Like I was really focused on like trying to lose weight.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we went vegan, going on vegan for 2 years. Still find my way into the cookies. Just want everybody to know vegan is not, you don't have to be the healthy vegans if you don't want to. But, like that entire time, like I just kept telling myself, life has felt uncontrollable. Let's better it. Let's become more stable and, figure out ways to be a better person to produce better content. And I genuinely credit content production for building my confidence. I feel like when I worked at Tesla, I never would have been able to do what we're doing now.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. I personally don't think I would have had the confidence to put myself out there like this, to produce content, get the criticism from people, build off of that criticism and like continue growing.
Yeah.
I never, ever imagined by putting out my first awkward video that we would be flying to California and doing videos up Angeles Crest. Like, never once pictured that, which is incredible, because my entire life, like, I've always battled, self-esteem issues and, like, depression and anxiety and all that stuff. So, like, to find that outlet and to build that foundation off of was really helpful.
Yeah.
So, as everybody was like struggling with, COVID pandemic, kind of like, the new lifestyle, for 2020 and onward, I just kept bettering the craft. You and I started Living Electric in 2021. We collaborated in 2020. We built this good creative partnership where we're bouncing ideas off of each other and like really just growing things together. And, I was still at Quadix as a project analyst trying to still figure out what I wanted to do, but I always knew electric cars, it was my goal. But it was kind of like what you talked about. Ohio didn't have much.
It's like, where are the jobs with EVs in Ohio?
Yeah. And, it's like you can't just pack up everything and move to the West. So it's like, okay, like it's essentially like a waiting game. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. We'll crop that part out. Cut that part out. But basically, like I always knew like EVs is where I wanted to be, and like we were growing momentum with our YouTube channels and like with like Living Electric, and I saw Chargeway had an opening for an EV product special or man, it's been a day. An EV program specialist doing data and research for their team. And I jumped on it. I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm ready to move on from my current position. I was unhappy there. And I knew that EVs were where I wanted to be. And I built all this database experience from that job at Quadix, learning how to be a project manager, project analyst, managing my professional time more, that I'm like, I'm gonna thrive at this. Like, this is where the two worlds come back together, you know, the IT professional world and the EV world. And I'm like, this is the moment. And I had the first interview. It was 15 minutes. I felt fantastic about it. Actually, I do have to say that during the interview, James, who is our director of business at Chargeway, he brought up a question. He's just like, why do you want to be back in the EV industry? And I was like, I need to be back in the EV industry. And he legit goes, I probably wouldn't answer it that way.
It's never good when an interviewer says that.
No,
that wasn't a good answer.
It was like, I was like, oh no, I'm blowing my shot. Like, I literally called Tyler. I'm like, I messed up.
Oh no.
And then throughout this whole time, like, I built a good relationship with Matt, from YouTube and like learning about Chargeway and teaching about Chargeway on everyday EV. And so, like, I was like, well, did I screw up, or like, what's going to happen? And, fast forward a week later, I got a job offer on my dad's birthday. And that's where I'm like, okay, everything's coming together. All the points that I've struggled through my entire life leading up to this moment. This is the moment where I'm personally going to be happy professionally and outside of work. And jumping from Quadix to Chargeway was honestly the best decision I think I've ever made in my life, because it not only works out creatively, through like our content production, but also professionally. I get to do literally everything that I've been dreaming of, and I get to do it every day.
Yeah.
So, Matt always jokes that I like tell him, I'm like, this is the best job I've ever had. And it's true, because it is. And that's like, I'm not sucking up to you. Like, this is literally the best job I've ever had. And it just took time. It's funny going back and like kind of looking inwards. For me personally, I don't think I was so focused on the struggle that I didn't realize all the little baby steps that I was making to get to the point that I am now.
Yeah.
And it's nuts how much all of that comes together.
I was going to make that same point. It's like, you don't really realize when you're kind of like in the thick of things, like how much little moments or different experiences end up leading you to like your next win or your next triumph. Like, all those little parts end up playing into it in some way. You might not know it right now, but like it eventually is going to work out in a way that like is beneficial for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I'll give the advice, like, just don't give up, like, just continue pushing forward, like, in 2019, like, I never imagined that, like, I would be here, we would be, building a successful podcast and, like, like, building a YouTube channel, like, like, I never thought I would be here. So, like, it's amazing how things can, like, honestly just change when you really put your effort into it and, like, really focus on, like, bettering yourself. But that is pretty much my story. Like, I've always been one person to look at the alternative, and it's funny like now as EVs become the norm, seeing that transition from like almost like an outskirt like category of the automotive industry to like becoming obviously like mainstream. It's so fascinating to watch that transition happen, and to be honest, it seems like it's happening overnight. Like, it's 2016.
Crazy. Yeah.
There was no, like, I never imagined that there would be like a Hyundai Ioniq 5, like 6 of them at a dealership up the street from us. Like, I never imagined that. And it's just exciting. And, I'm just so grateful to be a part of this industry.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like, I struggle with this sometimes, almost being like protective of the EV industry in a way where you're like, I was here first. Like I need to be involved in these conversations, and like I need to be like, people are getting all this stuff wrong. Do you ever feel like protective in that way, that it's now becoming kind of like mainstream?
I kind of, it's funny you say that, because I picture like the alpha EV enthusiast, like,
I am the authority.
Yeah, I'm the authority. It's funny because like it kind of goes back to like the way I've always been when it comes to talking about EVs. Like it's when I was a product specialist, you know, like we would have people come in all the time asking questions like, you know, I've heard you have to throw these cars away when you run out of a charge, or like, you know, like all these really just like far-fetched misconceptions.
Yeah.
And, you know, to them, it's not far-fetched. You know, it's like to me who knows it, it's like, okay, well, yeah, that's kind of like out there. But let's talk about it. You know, like let's figure out your concerns. Like, why are you questioning this? Like, why do you have that question? That should be a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
And talking about it. And I think I still stand by that that approach. And I really think working at Tesla taught me that, because it was a no pressure environment. You know, like I can't tell you how many times I screwed up when I was brand new at the company. I used to think electric motors rotated backwards when you would let off the accelerator. Like I swear somebody taught me that at Tesla at the time, and I remember bringing that up to a customer. My manager was like, no,
That's not. No,
they don't rotate backwards.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I don't know if I get protective of the EV industry. I definitely feel like as I'm getting more experience and as I'm helping, like, you know, like build more awareness and like helping like local cities like put chargers in. Yeah. I think I have more of a sense of pride, but I don't know. I almost feel like I've been there type of feeling, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I think I think it's I'd almost get like kind of like not something that I like struggle with, but like it's kind of like it's weird now that's becoming mainstream. I feel like it's going to kind of lose its luster as like this new exciting technology. But then I like the example you just brought up. It's like people are still have misconceptions. People are still learning about this. Like we've still got a long way to go. Like,
yes.
Like even though it's definitely becoming mainstream and like kind of the very far-fetched ideas are becoming less and less prevalent, there's still like a lot to learn. So yeah, and I mean, as you mentioned, like there's still like a lot of work to do, and I think that that's one area that like I've always taken pride in, is that like even though I wasn't like being paid to work in the industry, I still pushed the industry forward through, you know, like helping like with the education efforts. And there was actually a time in 2016, I remember when I worked at Tesla, I was driving from Kent State to Cleveland to go to work, and I just kept thinking, I'm like, I should be the Johnny Appleseed of charging stations. Like that thought just popped in my head. I'm like, I should start a business, and I mean, I don't know if like go
Johnny
random
Appleseed
places and start installing chargers.
Yeah, could you imagine that?
Instead of planting trees.
Me with like no engineering background, I just have like a shovel and a screwdriver. Like,
I'm here to install a station.
Right.
Put on your hard hat.
Right. Just call me Bob the Builder. It's gonna happen. But like it was something that I always wanted to see. So like to essentially, it's funny because like I think about that moment now that I'm at ChargeWay as like the data lead, that whenever I put like a new pin like in our system, I'm essentially doing what I had done, you know, like, or had like thought about, like I'm planting that seed. Obviously there's a charger there, but like, you know, it's what I've always wanted to do. So like, it's funny how like those, it's always like they say manifest your reality, and things just take time, you know. It doesn't happen overnight. So
for sure,
it's crazy how things work out.
It really is.
That was a lot of rambling. I'm sorry.
No, that was awesome. Yeah, this is the first time I've heard the whole Brandon story, so that was really enlightening.
Well, basically to summarize it, I struggled and I came over that. So. But I will say, just because, like, you know, I've always been a firm believer of, like, mental health and, like, bettering yourself to be better for yourself and not for anybody else. And I know that this isn't the point of living electric, but essentially it is, because you want to live an energized life. You know, you want to live a good life. If you're struggling, you know, to, like, figure out what you want to do with your life, or if you're struggling with, like, mental health, never feel ashamed to get help. Talk to somebody, you know, because you never know how that could change your life. I know for me personally, if I didn't have a therapist, it would have been very rough. So I just want to put that out there. You know, try to do whatever you can to better yourself, but just take time. Realize it takes time.
For sure. Yeah, that's something I need to look into because I've never been to a therapist, and it's probably something I need to at least have a have a couple chats with.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely like a big thing too. Like I certainly like don't cope with things in probably the best way sometimes because I end up just like pushing myself harder, which can sometimes like backfire and end up like making making me more stressed out or make me like feel more of a failure because I've like pushed myself and then like not been able to accomplish things. But I think to your point earlier about like in kind of the advice category, like sticking with things, if you really do feel like that's your future, that's what you want to do. Like even if you're not, like you were saying, like even if you're not actively working in the EV industry but you want to get into it, like start posting about it, start like sharing information with your friends, like even if you don't want it to be public either, like just research in your free time, like like just stay up to date on things. Like the more kind of manifest it, like you said, like the more you're around it and kind of like making it a part of your life, like you're eventually going to gravitate towards that in some capacity. So
yeah, exactly. And I mean, you even hit it on the head, like put yourself out there. Like if you're interested in this, post it on social media because, you know, my job with ChargeWay, like Matt from ChargeWay found me on YouTube. Yeah. And that's actually how you and I really built our friendship because we met at, you know, together for the first time to do that collaboration about ChargeWay. Yeah. And Matt came across my videos and that whole relationship basically was built off of me putting content out there. Yeah. So you honestly never know who's going to see your stuff. And to circle back really quickly because we were talking about resume stuff. As an IT recruiter, you know, my piece of advice is really tailor your resume towards the job that you're looking to apply to. Obviously, don't make it look like you're, you know, like a fanatic about, you know, like the company, but definitely show that passion. You don't have to get a tattoo in order to get a job. just gonna put that out there. That just worked in my favor.
Every company logo that you're applying for on your arm.
Right. Okay, it's Starbucks. Like, but, you know, definitely tailor your resume towards the job that you're applying to. And the best piece of advice I could say is network. Go to networking events, meet the people who are in the industry that you're looking to get into, talk with them, bring your skill set, but also just be yourself. I think that really helps you the most in this industry is enthusiasm for the better to move this industry forward. Because, you know, you've mentioned like this industry is newer. And as things grow and things kind of like plateau, you just have to keep pushing right now because this industry, it has to succeed. Like we need this to succeed. So
definitely. What would you say to, like I've never gone to like a networking specific event, like especially with how big social media is, like that's kind of my form of networking. Like what's your advice for like kind of being successful with like social media networking? Is there any like advice you have there?
So I do have some advice there. Be cautious what you share, and how you share it. I'll just say that, because we've had when I was a recruiter, we've looked at people's social media and it's like, we're not presenting you because it was just not pretty. So be mindful of what you're sharing. Just also be in the know before you share it. Anybody on the internet can see that. Literally anybody can. And just keep it based on your interest. Like if you're sharing something about engineering, you know, like charging engineering, make sure that it's proper information that you want out there because you never know if a job, like a company might look at that and be like, oh, he got that totally wrong. Or they got that totally wrong.
They're just spreading misinformation. Like they're not actually providing any value.
Yeah. So do your research, make sure you know what you're sharing, and just be cautious with what you share. And if you really feel like you need to share it, because not everything needs to be shared. And I can attest to that. I have done it and I still do it.
Yeah. I think it's something a lot of us struggle with in this day and age. It's like, we've got this giant microphone that we can blast out to the entire world if we want to. And it's like, I definitely like struggle with that sometimes too. I'm like, is this like before I tweet anything or share anything, even like videos, I'm like, is this going to add value to the conversation? Is this accurate information I'm sharing? Is this helpful maybe to people that are looking for this kind of content? Like all of those boxes kind of have to be checked before I share anything.
Yeah. And,
At least
and
I
think
try
it's good-
to. I definitely don't. I don't always follow my own advice there. Sometimes I do like get passionate about something and just start firing stuff off, but that's not always the best route.
Well, I think it's good to have standards for yourself. You know, like I don't think there's anything wrong with expecting, you to behave in a certain way. Like you're the only one sharing that. So like, yeah, I think that's actually another good recommendation. Have standards, for yourself, not for other. It's good to have standards for other people, but like make sure you live up to your expectations of who you are as a person.
Definitely.
Man, I feel like maybe we should do more episodes like this.
I know. Yeah, this was fun. I feel like we align very well on the like self-improvement and self-help type stuff too. So maybe that could be our alternate podcast. We'll do one of these a season or something.
Right? Yeah, we definitely could. No, I definitely, and I've told you this before, like I credit the people who are in my lives to help, or in my life, to better myself, like to help push me to be a better person. Like that's not something I expect from people who are in my life, but like the fact that like it just happens without being said, that surround yourself with good people and you'll thrive.
That's like a huge thing that like a lot of like the self-help stuff starts with, is like surround yourself with people like you look up to, or you look like are going to be positive impacts on your life, because you are what you do every day, and you are who you hang out with every day. Like those two factors really influence like the kind of person you are. So
well, it's a good thing this is our last episode. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I really think that that's my story, and I appreciate everybody hopefully listening to it through all the way to the end. I know that it was kind of all over the place, but I was really looking forward to sharing that with everybody, because I think at the end of the day, it helps us bond with our listeners.
Definitely.
Because we're not just EV people, like we have like whole different aspects of our life that pulls into this content production.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's lost a lot of time on the content production side of things, because people like, I see comments like that all the time, like, why is your whole personality EVs? And it's like, well, like that's certainly a big part of it, but there's a lot that's led to it, and there's like other interests than that. That's just what we choose to spend our time on and spread information about. So
well, mine's like 95% of my personality. So if anybody says anything, just
is
know
my
I
personality,
will agree with
and I'm
you.
proud of it. All right.
Yes, exactly. Don't come at me with anything else. And 5% Pikachu. That's the rest.
That's awesome. Alrighty. I have to outro this one, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure you tie in the villain story.
That's right.
Because somewhere in there was a villain.
So that's the story of how Brandon's going to take over the world and force everyone to drive EVs, and he's sticking to it.
Yep, exactly. It's like Pinky in the Brain. That's what's gonna happen.
That's right. Cool. So hope you enjoyed this episode series. This was definitely a fun one for us. Let us know what you thought as well. If you want us to share any more of our stories or other kind of similar stuff to this about the EV industry. I don't think we got into kind of the pros and cons of the EV industry, so that might be an interesting episode as well.
Yeah.
There's definitely more discussion there.
Yes.
So, thanks so much for listening, and hope to see you on the next episode.